me, the person who takes total responsibility stands out to be powerful, respected, and loved. If you agree with me, just type yes on the chat box or on the live FB channel. Friends, how many of you also agree with me that being responsibility and taking total responsibility is a characteristic of every dynamic, result-oriented, and effective leader? My friends, if you all agree with me, just type yes on the chat box or on the live Facebook, just type yes. Friends, I welcome each one of you and our revered guest, Father Crispino, for our 7th episode of our chat show, Sales Masteries, Life Mastery, episode number 7. Friends, the very fact that each one of you who are viewing this particular chat show tells me one thing about each one of you, that each one of you is among the top 10% of the world's population who are interested in investing on the most important asset that we human beings are blessed with, that is our own self. Friends, today we are really honored to have one of the persons whom I get so much inspiration from, who's a live role model, who's in many ways a mentor to me, and with whom I have had some great moments in the last 10 years. The person who is here has also been profiled in my recently released book called The Sales Master, 21 Key Elements to Win the Game of Life and Selling. My dear friends, this book I wrote basically from this premise that for a human being to become a life master, he has to be a sales master as well. And I highlighted 21 elements or characteristics and qualities which many of these human beings who are life masters and sales masters possess. And then I, over a period of 3 years, went about meeting these 21 people who have inspired me personally, who I knew, who I'm acquainted with. And I try to see what is that one quality which they have a predominant characteristic in their life. Let me just clarify that many of these 21 qualities are there, they're intermeshed. So if a person is a giver, he also is equally resourceful and responsive. Similarly, a person who is responsible is also courageous and also having a very big self-concept about himself. So they are intertwined. But the person whom I have profiled in each of those chapters, under each of those qualities, have predominantly shown that, exhibited that characteristics, and they have achieved pinnacle of success. Friends, one more thing was, which I consciously did, was I chose people from different faculties of life, or people pursuing different professions. And there were some who were chartered accountants, there were industrialists, there were entrepreneurs, there are people who were even merchant navy captains, there's a orthopedic surgeon, and like the person we have today we have a priest who's also one of the renowned educators of India. So, but what I could see was in all of them, many of these qualities and characteristics were predominant and they were utilizing it. So the objective of this particular entire book and also this chat show is to inspire youths and the fellow human beings as to how they can learn from these life role models and incorporate those characteristics in them and thereby achieve success in any field of activities. Whether you are a student, whether you are a housewife, whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you are working as an executive, in whichever area of your life, in whichever pursuits of life, if we can actually incorporate, inculcate, and really use these qualities, they would be automatically forge you towards higher success. Friends, today I'm really blessed to have my friend, whom I also play every Sunday basketball, and who's also fiercely passionate about this game like me. and from whom I have a lot of discussion about self-improvement as well, almost on a weekly basis. I will be talking to him on this subject of total responsibility, because I know Father Crispino. He has been a person who, if I just read out the profile, it will show you as to what all he has accomplished in his life. Father Crispino today is holding the responsibility of being director of Don Bosco High School and director of Don Bosco International School, Matunga. He's also the coordinator of the Education Office of Mumbai Province. Father Crispino has served as school principal from 1998 to 2017, a whopping 19 years across Maharashtra. He's also seen as a visionary in the field of education, and he has introduced activity-based learning and especially emphasizing making sports a part of every student's life, thereby bringing in a fine balance between curriculum and extracurricular activities. He believes in focusing and upping the happiness quotient of every stakeholder of the school, which he so brilliantly manages. So friends, with this short introduction, let me officially welcome Father Crispino. Welcome, and thank you very much for taking out your valuable time and being there for this chat show. So welcome to the chat show, Father Crispino.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arunagiri. It's a first time for me coming on a chat show, and I must congratulate you on the book that you have written, The Sales Master. And it's a very humbling experience for me to feature in that book. So thank you so much for making me part of this whole enterprise and having me today this evening for this chat show.
Thank you, Father. Thank you very much. In fact, it has been my blessing and my honor, and also my real good fortune that you agreed to be profiled in my book. And let me tell you very frankly, in the last 2-3 months, where this book has already been sold widely, people have loved your story, and many people are very, very keen to meet you. And the invitation has gone out, and many of them are viewing us live and learning from a real life master like you, Father Crispino. You have been an inspiration for people who have been close to you. But I, for one, believe that through this book and through such chat shows, your greatness will be known to many people, and you would become more of an intense inspiration to many more people. Father, that's what is my real objective of having you for this chat show. So thank you for being there. So Father, the first question I want to ask you, because I'm a big believer of this concept of what we are going to discuss is total responsibility. And I know you personally. I know the way you lead the school, the way you manage the school, whichever school you are a principal and head. I know the way you lead us when we have to organize the All India tournament. And you lead by example. So I wanted to ask you, what helped you to incorporate this quality of total responsibility in your life?
See, this thing, quality of total responsibility has first time been given to me, and it was a revelation for me, after reading your book. Yeah. So, but I like to clarify this whole thing of responsibility. Many of us think that whatever happens in our life is due to fate, or what we say destiny. But I have a different take on that. See, I believe, also coming from a religious background, I believe that God gives each one of us a vocation in life.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So each of us has a vocation. See, it's different from a career. A career is something where you earn a living, but your vocation is what you are called to. God has chosen you to do this and make a difference in the world. Absolutely. And that is your vocation. So for you, it may be writing books and reaching out to people. That is your vocation. Yeah. You may not be earning much, but it gives you a sense of fulfillment. No?
Very true.
And no, and that is your passion also. So for me, I saw my life. Uh, it was not clear at the start, but now after I'm almost 56 now, going to 57. I see a pattern in my life, and I see God choosing me, right at the start, at a very young age, and then leading me through these years, through this vocation. Now, Arunagiri, I liked very much your definition of total responsibility in the book.
Right.
You've said it very nicely. It's not very explicit, but I like to clarify that definition of yours. Responsibility is made up of two words: response and ability.
Very true.
So basically, responsibility is the ability to respond.
Very true.
So if you say that God has chosen you, then it is your ability to respond to that call. And I think what I have done in my life is responded in my own little way to what God has called me to do and make a difference in this world. So my beginnings were very humble, very simple. I came from a middle class family. Yeah. My father was working in the Bombay Porter's docks. He used to go to work early in the morning, come back in the evening. My mother was a teacher. She used to take a lot of tuitions in the house. Then she used to take us to school. It was a day school, start at around 12 o'clock, in Wadala, and then end by 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and then she would again take tuitions, So both my parents were working, and so we were left almost to ourselves to grow up. So that was what was my upbringing as a childhood, and because of which, since my parents didn't find that much time, as parents today, they spend so much of time following up their children. Our parents just left us, to ourselves, and we had to find our own ways.
Sure.
So in that sense, my whole life changed when at the age of 12, I entered into a boarding school, in Lanavla. And it was not just any ordinary boarding, it was a boarding which was meant for those who had the intention of joining the priesthood. Right. So it was a very special boarding in that sense.
Right.
And when I was chosen to join that boarding, it was only so that I would make the numbers, because, as you say, many are called, but few are chosen. True. So we were just chosen like that. And out of 56 of us who entered in the 8th grade, in the year 1976, only 3 of us from those 56 ultimately became priests.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But entering that boarding, my whole life changed in the sense is, from a person who was doing anything, and playing a lot of pranks and mischief and getting into trouble and getting shouting from my parents and not studying, and I have gone through the worst in my childhood. But when I entered into the boarding, my life changed in the senses I had a timetable.
Right.
We had a timetable that every boarding has. You get up in the morning. There is time for study. There is time for recreation. There is time to eat. Everything is well timed, and there are people who are following you up. And that is where I really learned what responsibility is all about.
Wow, fantastic, Father! You really coined it beautifully, and you just went back into the genesis of how responsibility got built in you. Because I, for one, also believe that all these qualities and responsibility is a learnable skill. You have to learn it. Nobody is born with a sense of responsibility, and as you beautifully narrated, that it has to be built in. Father, now, I know you are one of the visionary academic professional and also an educator par excellence. I just wanted to learn from you that today this world has got a biggest challenge of education. The quality of education or quality of educated people are quite sloppy. because we are really missing truly educated people, because if the world was having more truly educated people, this world would be a much better place. So I wanted to learn from you. So what are the challenges in the field of education, and what according to you are the remedies to address these challenges, that people are more knowledge driven rather than this character building or these appropriate attitudinal mindset building? So Father, what is your take on that, and how can we improve on this aspect?
Yeah, see, this is my area of expertise for the
Wow.
last 35 years. I'm into education. Yeah, so you have asked the right question at the start. Uh, you know, the and today with the new national education policy coming out, the NEP, there is a lot of talk that is going on all across the country, on this
Right.
new policy. Yeah. Uh, Policies are very good. Even before this policy, we had another policy, uh, and it was mainly on paper. We hardly ever spoke about it. Many of us as principals also forget, students and staff members. Even principals didn't know that there was a national education policy. Yeah. So when we had sessions conducted for us, no, it was only in the last 10 years or something I came to know that there is a framework called a national education policy that a government has laid down, and which has remained only as a policy on paper and not put into practice. Yeah. Now today, with the policy coming out, it is revamped and in keeping with the modern times. Yeah. Why in keeping with the modern time? Because all this time for us, education, as most of us have come through this, generation,
Yes.
is our whole purpose of education was to pass an examination.
Yes.
It was not for learning. So everything was focused on that examination. And so completion of portions became so important, attending school became so important, writing down notes became so important. And if there was any time a student was really stressed, it was during the time of the examination.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is the sad part of it, because then learning does not become a joyful experience, which it's supposed to be. I had the good fortune of transitioning from a state board education, which I spent nearly 30 years. In the last 5 years, I have moved on to the international curriculum of education, the IB curriculum, the IGCSE curriculum, and we were one of the first religious schools to start an international school in the city of Mumbai. So at that time, I was also head of the Education Commission of the province. So I had to do a lot of research on what is this international education that we are talking about.
Right.
And this type of education is not to answer an examination.
Wow.
So this type of education is very important, that you learn how you learn.
Oh.
Because at the present rate, the kind of problems that we are facing today will not be the problem that we are facing in the next 2 to 3 years also. Forget about next 10 years.
Very true.
Because things are changing so fast in the world today. So what we need to train our children to is in problem solving skills, in inquiry, in research. So whichever the problem may be, they must be able to come up with solutions, and they must have these skills, these 21st century skills, which unfortunately our present day education does not cater to at all. So hopefully, I really hope with the new education policy coming out, it's now to see how they will put it into practice. And unless you bring all the stakeholders together and involve them into implementing the new education policy, that policy will remain only as a policy and nothing else. So I'm very hopeful that it will change the whole scenario in the country in the coming years.
Awesome, Father. I think you nailed it. In fact, this as a trainer, teacher, educator like you, what I see is many of the people who pass out of colleges are not employable, because they have not really got the requisite skill.
One very important aspect of education is vocational training.
Yes.
We are only so filled with knowledge in our head, that we don't know how to use our hands. We
Right.
don't know how to apply that knowledge.
Very
And today, that is the most important thing. It is because knowledge is available on the internet. You just have to browse and Google. You'll get all the possible knowledge. But how are you going to apply that knowledge? How are you going to see whether this is correct knowledge or this is a wrong knowledge? So those skills we need to teach our children.
Absolutely. Father, in fact, this helps me to transition to the next question, which you rightly said. Father, according to recent research, they say in this era of such rapid change, you require two skills. One is the people skill and the second is the selling skill and leadership skill. Father, I wanted to ask you this. I know you. I have seen you personally. You have a fabulous leadership skill of leading from the front. And I also know how you empower, enable, and educate your entire team. Because I know in Don Bosco, there are hundreds and hundreds of teachers and thousands of students. And I've seen you empowering them and enabling them. So I wanted your insight into this aspect of it, because this, again, as you rightly said, is the most important skill required in the new generation. How to lead people, how to empower people, how to enable people, how to be intimate with people, people skill. So Father, what's your take on that?
Okay, I must, nice question. I like this question on leadership. Yeah. See, in management, I'm sure you must be aware of this. There's a certain principle called the Peters Principle.
Yes.
You've heard of the Peters Principle? It is a book, the Peter Principle, written by Lawrence J. Peter and Raymond Hull. And in that book, they say this, that employers rise to their level of incompetence. Yeah. So what happens is, see, a person like me who is very responsible, so my superiors, or my managers will, in the corporate world, your bosses will give you a job and you do it well. Then they'll give you another job. Because you have done this job well, they'll give you a raise and give you another job which is more challenging.
Right.
You do that well, they'll take you higher up, and they keep taking you higher and higher and higher till you reach a level of incompetence and then you fall flat down.
Right.
That is the Peter Principle.
Yeah.
So I went through that experience, in my initial years, where as a leader, I was principal for so many years. And every school that I went, my first school was in Don Bosco, Pune, Yerwada. I was only 3 years over there. And it was a small co-ed school, on the outskirts of the city at Yerwada, where the central jail is there. Very close to that, we have a school. And the children were very simple children, boys and girls. And I spent only 3 years there. And I don't know whether I did so well there that they pulled me out after 3 years. Normal tenure of a principal is 5 years. But after 3 years, I was pulled out from there. And I was put in charge of the biggest school that we have in the city. That was Don Bosco, Matunga. So in 2000, from Pune, I came to Matunga as principal. And it was such a jump for me. Yeah, very big jump, So, but I managed somehow. It took me nearly 2 years to get a hang of what was happening, around. Then I, remained in Matunga for 8 years. That is the longest serving principal, that has been there in the Matunga school in recent years. And that is where I met all of you all, and I have some really beautiful memories, which I will never forget. But my whole, kind of leadership was, everything was on my shoulders. I was the sole decision maker. Yeah. And things became so stressful, as the years went by, because the whole burden you are carrying on your shoulders alone, because you feel responsible for everyone and anything that is happening in the school. And it's not a small school. It's a school of 3,500 children. with an under 150 staff. So, and year by year, you are trying to improve the standards. So the pressure is keeping on increasing, admission pressure, all sorts of pressures. So at the end of 8 years, it was I who asked to be relieved from Matunga, and I was transferred then to Dominic Savio Andheri.
Yeah.
And that experience in Andheri, you must be aware, was very interesting because I started there as principal, and I was in Andheri also for 8 years.
Right.
But the first 5 years, I was only principal of the school. Yeah. And also in charge of the boarding. We have an orphanage over there. Yeah. But then in my 5th year, the rector, who's another man, who's the head of the institution, became the provincial, okay, the head of the province. And since they couldn't find anybody to fill in his shoes, and I was there like a bakra, they made me both. They made me both, a principal and rector.
Wow.
Sometimes people whom they find capable, they give them 2 jobs like this. It's not an easy thing to do. Yeah. This is where the Peters principles come into play. They keep on adding responsibilities on you.
Yeah.
So I had to make a very definitive decision in my leadership over there. Am I going to now give full attention to my job as principal in the school, or am I going to give attention to my job as rector of the institution? Because in Andheri, besides the school, there was the evening study classes, there was the orphanage, there was Don Bosco Prafulta, the counseling center. All these things come under the rector, and the rector is also in charge of all the fathers and the brothers who are there. So he is also responsible for the personnel, to see that they are going on well in their life and all that. So I made a very clear priority choice that my attention would be on my role as rector, because I saw that as more important than being a principal. And although I was a principal, I delegated all my jobs, my administrative jobs. I made a clear distinction between administrative jobs and animating jobs. So first I was doing both. I was an administrator and I was an animator. But now, getting more responsibility, all my administrative jobs I delegated to the heads of various sections. So the head of the pre-primary section, head of the primary section, head of the secondary section, head of the open school, I made them as mini principals of their own section. I gave them total responsibility, total trust. And every week I would have a meeting with them and make them share what was happening in each of the sections and guide them. So this is the only way to beat the Peter principle, a shared responsibility. So if we have time, we will talk about the Savio Cup. I was able to do such a international event here in Matunga only because I was able to share that responsibility with all the members of the club. So today's way of going about things is not like the older time where you take everything on your head, and you become the martyr. That is not the way to move ahead as a leader today. Today, a leader has to take everyone with him and share his responsibility. So you are not the sole person who is responsible for everything. You share your responsibility with your whole team, and that is the way you move forward.
Awesome, Father. In fact, you have led me to the next question which I had for you, and I prepared it on the basis of my personal experience with you and my objective evaluation of your achievements, accomplishments, and your qualities. You are known as a person who is an expert in organizing mega events. Father, you also very beautifully touch on, maybe it's just a divine providence, that you touch upon the concept which I'm going to come about, because this is a very, very critical element in today's business world, in your personal life, and in every area of life. That's called trust. Trust is the quality that you are associated with. I know you trust people and you let them, and you also use one more very beautiful word, which is again, I think the crux of today's management leadership, delegation. Can you tell us how you are able to achieve this, and how did you develop this quality of trusting people, delegating them, and then empowering them to be a partner with you to achieve this mega successes in this organizing this huge event?
Yeah. See, trust is one factor. No, it is, I always say there are two legs on which we stand.
Right.
Yeah? So trust is one leg. Yeah. The other leg, no, which has equal importance and which goes along with trust, no, is love.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have
Wow.
also mentioned this in that chapter,
Yes.
no, about love. No. So see, you only love the people whom you trust, and you trust the people whom you love. No. So the both the things go hand in hand. Yeah. So, and another word for love is passion.
Yes.
So, see, you and me, we are so passionate about a game of basketball. So, that is what takes us forward from week to week. No,
Yes.
that love for the game. No,
Absolutely.
so same way, no, in my dealings with people, I start from a premise of trust. I don't see what has been your past or what you have done or what you're coming with. I believe basically everyone is good, and that you can see when you're working in a school setup. I believe all our children who come to school are good, are loving children. What is sad is sometimes the home situation, the experiences that they have gone through in their childhood is what makes them difficult children in school. Sometimes the kind of parents that they have, the upbringing and all, uh, that is the thing that causes problems. But something that is very, very important is to have basic trust in anybody. Yeah? So I always start with trusting a person. Now, there is no guarantee that that trust is going to be returned. I have had experiences in my life where people have let me down and betrayed that trust that I have put in them. But that does not stop me from trusting another person. Yeah, because if you want to go ahead, in life, you have to trust people. Yeah, like a simple thing: you enter a bus, you trust your life in the hands of the driver.
Right.
So it is like that. So, and then whatever you do, if you do not have love in it, you don't have passion, there's no use doing it. Because I love my job, because I love being a priest, because I love playing basketball, because I love being with children. That is what makes me happy and makes me get up every day and go to the playground and do what I am doing. So I think these two things, are very important whenever we are dealing with people, to trust them and to love them.
Very well said, Father. You really nailed it, as you beautifully said. The two legs on which any really progressive person stands on is trust and love. And when you have these two factors in your life, or when you use these two divine forces, anything is possible. Father, now let me transition to one more thing which is common between us: your love for basketball. And Father, your love for basketball and physical fitness is legendary. Okay. And of course, we both know it, but I just want you to verbalize it, because as I said, the objective of this chat show is to profile real life masters who are role models in their community, in their society. I want this message to go across the globe so that more and more people get it. But I wanted you to just share with us how important is sports in building character, personality, and leadership. And
yeah, let me share, Arunagiri, with you a childhood experience of mine. See, I told you at the start, my childhood was not very smooth or very bright. I went through a lot of difficult times because I was not good in studies. I was left on my own, and then you tend to get wavered in that sense, with no proper direction. And because I was weak in studies and my mother was a teacher, and I'm the only son in the family. I have two sisters, one elder to me, one younger to me. They were good in studies, but I was the more playful type. I should love to be, rather than sit in the house with a book, any day I would go on the playground and run with my friends. I was number one in Chor Police at that time. If I had to run, uh, my companions, even if there were 15 of them, would find it very difficult to catch me. And we were staying in those BPT quarters where there were railway lines on both sides of the buildings. So if they were coming after me on the road, I should run on the tracks. So I was very good at running on the tracks also, because all the stones in the middle, they would find it very difficult. So in that sense, I was very playful. But my mother would never allow me to go down to play because I was weak in studies. And that was something that I detested a lot. So that is what created that urge in me to play, and which I never got when I was a kid till I was 12 years old. But when I went to the boarding, as I told you,
Yes.
I got enough of time to play. And that is where people understood me, that if you give him to play, he will give you whatever you want from him.
Right.
And that is where I started rising up in my grades, and I started doing very well in studies. When I was at home, I used to get 2 out of 20 in a maths unit test. In the boarding, I was getting 20 out of 20. My mother got a shock. She thought I was copying, till the father told her, no, he's a very bright student.
Yeah.
So, see, that is what sports does to a child, And see, Don Bosco, who is our father and founder, we are Don Bosco priests, he worked with youth, especially rural youth who came to the city of Turin, and were just loitering around the place. So he used to gather them together on a Sunday, which was their day off from work, and play games with them, and then give them some moral values at the end of that session. So that is how the work of Don Bosco started in Italy. So sports, Don Bosco says, you want to see the character of a child, watch him on the playground. Because over there, all his shields are down. He will show his character, how generous he is, how forgiving he is, what kind of a fighter he is on the playground in the way he plays that sport. It can be any silly sport, It helps him to accept failure when he loses a game. What is his reaction, So for me, sports is a medium through which I reach out to youngsters, And because of this urge in me for sports, which has still not died, I'm so passionate about playing sports. Like even today in the pandemic, the few of us who are here, we are still going and shooting some baskets, doing some drills and this thing, keeping ourselves fit. So that when you come on a Sunday, then we will have a tough fight on the basketball court.
Well,
yeah, so that is how, and I always see sports as something that attracts children, Even in a school setup, you tell the children, if you pay attention to what I'm doing in the class, I will take you out one period on the playground, and you'll find there'll be pin drop silence, there'll be perfect discipline, they'll do whatever you tell them because they want to go out and play, So sports is a very powerful medium of getting people together, and building character. You can teach so much of life lessons which you cannot teach in the classroom. You can teach it on the playground.
Absolutely.
So that is why I'm very passionate about sports.
Well, you said it. In fact, if you ask me, I also come from a lower middle class family. And I want to acknowledge and thank in this chat show the role played by Savio Club, Don Bosco's. Even though I was not a Boscoite, I was from South Indian Welfare Society High School, a Tamil medium school, but we were welcomed in Don Bosco's, in Savio Club, as if we are a part of the community. And if today, whatever I am today, be it in my business, be it as a trainer, be as a sportsman, it's all because of Savio Club. In fact, Father, I remember that we used to spend 10, 12 hours during the vacations just playing all types of games. And if I could achieve anything in basketball, it's all because of Don Bosco's and Savio Club. And you nailed it. Your personality, your character and your entire future will get built up only in the sports arena, sports ground. Very well said, Father. Very well said. You nailed it. Uh, but I want to touch upon one more thing, in which again you are one of the experts and whom I know is an authority, because your uh, Sunday masses are so very popular because of your ability to communicate. Father, you preach the power of communication, influence, and persuasion. This again is said, the quality of your life is your quality of your communication. But I want you to share with us, how did you develop your ability to communicate and influence people? And what role does it play in you living a more effective life?
See, in today's digital and tech savvy world, if there is one thing that is most important is communication.
Yes.
And a good communicator knows how to sell his message.
Yeah.
And in this, language plays a very important role. So the more languages you know, your reach is much more. Yeah. I will give you a little secret of mine now.
Sure.
When we become priests, when we are ordained priests, they had told us that at that moment when you're ordained, if you ask God for anything, He will grant it to you. Yeah. And when I was lying prostrate there on the ground and the prayers were being said over me, ordaining me as a priest, I asked God just for one thing.
Okay.
And you know what was that?
No, yes. Keen to know.
I asked God that whenever I speak, or to whomever I may speak, I may touch those people's hearts.
Wow, wow, wow.
That is the only thing I asked of God as a priest.
Fantastic.
And I can tell you now, I'm over 27 years a priest. God has kept His promise.
Wow.
Because after I speak, whether it is in the church, or whether it is at that assembly in school, or wherever it is, or even on a one-to-one conversation, people have always come and told me, Father, you spoke from your heart. Which means that they were touched by what I said. Yeah. Because I believe I communicate with my heart. I'm not a very, I don't have many degrees, and I don't have, in that sense, a lot of intellectual knowledge. But what I share with them, with whomever I speak, is my life. And I think God has blessed me with this gift of touching people's life through what I say to them. And so a good communicator needs to communicate from the heart. So whatever is in your heart, and that is seen, people see through you. You cannot fool all the people all the time. So when you speak, if you speak from the heart, you will reach out to people and people will reach out to you. That has been the secret of my success.
Father, you very well. In fact, you nailed it. Authenticity, which is very, very important part of communication. That's what I have seen in you. You are so very authentic because your thoughts, your words, and your actions always are in synchrony. And because of that congruence, Father, you are able to get across any messages with you, and you're able to build people around you. So this is something which is awesome. But I want to ask you, of course, you yourself are a role model, but who's your role model or a world leader whom you admire? Or even a sportsman? You have a lot, because there are a lot of people who would like to.
No, so see, I have only one model, and my model is Jesus Christ. I'm not saying this because I'm a priest, or because I come from a Catholic background, or because I'm not connoting anything religious to it. But for me, my model is Jesus Christ, because if you read his life, it's a very impactful life. Anybody, is taken up by reading the life from no matter what background you come. And what has made a deep impression on me about Jesus is his words. Every time, if you read the Gospels, the 4 Gospels in the Bible, there are 4 chapters, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. and each of them give their version of the life of Jesus. And there are some incidents that are repeated, there are some incidents that are not repeated. And when even today, in today's time, if you listen to the words of Jesus, they make a lot of sense in your own life. So that has been my source of inspiration. Whenever I'm in doubt, whenever I'm put in a challenging situation, I ask myself, what would Jesus do in this kind of a situation? How would he reach out to people? And that is where I find the answer. So he is my ultimate role model. Now, when you come to world leaders, honestly, to tell you, at the moment, there is nobody who makes the mark, who is impressing me. But I like to share with you certain qualities that I would look in a world leader.
Yeah.
A world leader, for me, who would impress me would be one who is sincere.
Yeah.
Okay. What you call authenticity.
Yes.
Okay. Who is sincere. These are the 4 S's.
Yeah.
Of a leader. One who is sincere, one who has a simple lifestyle. Okay. Third is he is service oriented. And the 4th is the ultimate, where he is ready to sacrifice his life for the sake of others.
Wow. Very
so
well.
4 S's that I would look in any world leader today, is sincerity, simplicity, service oriented, and ready to sacrifice one's life.
Yeah. Very well said, Father. Awesome. I think it's there's a dearth of leadership in the world. Very, very true. And that's the reason why we have got so many of these world crises, even though this world is full of abundance. But in this abundant world, which we have been blessed with, still there's so much of poverty, still there's so much of hunger, still there's so much of strife. I think you very rightly said, because of the lack of real good quality leaders who are actually practicing these 4 S's of yes, sir.
Yeah. One person that I respect very much from our country is our ex-president, Dr. Abdul Kalam.
Yes.
In fact, I think we are celebrating his day, one of these days.
Right.
Yeah. So he is one leader who is right up there, when it comes to simplicity, sacrifice, authenticity. He has all the qualities in him.
Absolutely. You said, Father. And Father, one more person who impresses me is Nelson Mandela.
Yes.
He was there. Father, he was one man when I read his autobiography, and it is somebody who cherishes all those 4 things. And he's always service oriented, he's ready to sacrifice, he's always sincere, and he always thinks about the population. And
very forgiving.
They're very forgiving. Oh, absolutely.
To be able to forgive the white men after what they did to him is amazing. He is a classic example of a person. And without forgiveness, Arunagiri, it's very difficult to move on in life. You have to learn to forgive.
Absolutely, you said that. But one more thing I want to ask about our country. We both of us love it so much. We both love India, and we both are very, very patriotic Indians. But India has a youthful population, and today the world over they say we have a demographic dividend. And if you can use or channelize this youthful power, we'll be able to become again the golden land that India was. But you, as a person who has led so many people, who are leading so many people, who have empowered so many people, what do you think? How can we channelize this humongous youth power which we have?
Yeah, see, as a Salesian priest, as a Don Bosco priest, my field of work is with youth.
Yeah.
And that is what I've been doing all right through my life. And for me, youth has got tremendous potential. There's so much that youth can do, because of that time in their life where they are bubbling with energy. If there is a message that I would like to give the youth of India is just this simple line: do not follow, learn to lead.
Learn to lead.
Yeah, there's a difference between following and leading. I find a lot of our youth today are just followers. They are not leaders. they need to transition from being just mere followers and listening to what people are saying in being leaders in their own right, coming up with innovative and creative things and taking this country to the next level. No, and this is where responsibility comes in.
Yeah.
See, youth is a stage in one's life where you lose your dependence from your parents and you become responsible of your own life.
Right.
If you go abroad, after you reach the age of 17, 18, you no longer live with your parents. You have to live by your own. You have to take responsibility of your life. It is only here in India that we are so attached to our parents that we are dependent on our parents. And that is where we lack responsibility of taking our own lives. So the age of youth is the age of responsibility. You have to take responsibility on yourself. Don't blame others, for what is happening in the country and what is happening in your life. Be leaders, stop being followers, and take this country to the next level.
Very well said. In fact, in our Savio Club, when we were children, we were given that anthem, keep busy and keep cheerful. Our motto we will leave. We'll never be fearful, to dare and to forgive. So those words are still etched in our mind. And as you beautifully said, if youth can be directed properly and we can use this youthful energy, I think this country can really again become the golden land which it was, which all of us cherish. For the last 10 minutes, I would like to ask you 2-3 more questions, which is again relevant to the present situation, because currently we are going through an unprecedented situation, Father, where this COVID-19 has disrupted all lives, family, business, the social fabric has been literally shifted. And one more thing which is happening is people have been affected in their mindset. But as a person who is a leader and who has understood this and who understands the psychology of people, what would be your advice to the people as to how they should maintain and nourish their mindset to face this unprecedented challenge?
See, when this whole pandemic experience started in the month of March, we really didn't know what has befallen us. We were thinking that it would take a few weeks, the lockdown would get over, and it was something that happened only in China. And then slowly we realized that from China it moved to Italy, from Italy it moved to the US, and slowly it spread all over the world till it hit the shores of India. And in the beginning we thought school will be closed for a month and then we would start again. Now it's almost more than 6 months, that we have gone on in this pandemic. And from what I hear is it's not going to get over very soon. So this situation is going to continue. And now more and more people who are close to us have got affected. Like there are certain fathers who have been tested positive. At the moment, there is one father in hospital who is just recovering from a COVID attack. I have lost a very close cousin of mine in Goa, a doctor, Dr. Mario Gudino, who was one of the leading doctors, in the city of Margao. And he succumbed to the disease, to the virus. Means it was too late to do anything and they just couldn't help him and we lost him. It was very sad. So when it comes to your doorstep, then it really hits you hard. Quite a few of our staff members are also tested positive. They are recovering. Their spouses have tested positive. So now, like, it has reached all over the place. I have only 3 things, that you can do, and are very important things. First thing is have a strong mindset. So when I say have a strong mindset, is be positive. Not test positive, but be positive.
Right.
Because it is very important to have that positive mindset. You are able to fight the virus only if you are strong in your mind. So many of us succumb. Half the battle is lost when we lose it in the mind, when we give up. When we say now it is no use to live, I want to die. That is already defeat. Then the virus only becomes the conqueror. So if you have a very strong mindset, and there are examples of elderly people who have fought the virus in their mind and said no, people who have got diabetes, who are cancer sufferers, with all possible ailments, have fought it in their mind and won over the virus. So it is so important, and especially when in this lockdown situation where you cannot move out of your house, you cannot freely move around, you cannot meet friends and all. Having a positive mindset, also fights stress and depression. Yeah. So I
Very
think it is very essential. That is the first thing. Have a strong mind. Secondly is have a fit body.
yeah.
So a healthy body, which means the first is be positive in the mind. Second is be active in the body. So you need to exercise in whatever way possible, whether it is in the confines of your room. There are so many exercises now you can do in your room. Yoga. There are so many things that can be done. You can go out in your compound down. Do some little bit, but you need to be active. Your body needs to be healthy and fit. Eat the right kind of food. Avoid things that are harmful. So this is the whole thing of having a fit body. And the third thing is have a generous heart. Yeah, be of service, because at this point of time there are so many people suffering. People, migrants who have lost everything. Who have absolutely nothing. People have been overnight lost their jobs and thrown on the road. So if you have the resources and you are able to reach out, have a heart and reach out to them, be of service to those who are in need in whatever way possible. So I think these three things are very important in this situation. Be positive, be active, and be of service.
awesome. Father, you nailed it. The 4 S's to leadership, and for 3 of the points which can really help you to face this unprecedented challenge which all of us are facing. Father, I think we almost spent 1 hour. It doesn't even realize. I just thought it just started. Then I was thinking about it. It's already 5:57. Just 3 minutes left, and it was awesome having you, Father. I would just share with you one small insights into what we are talking about. Father, we have, in order to help people who are having this challenge, especially for entrepreneurs and youth, we are having a free business seminar in order to help them to reset their business. Well, you said very, very rightly, there are people who have been overnight, they have lost job, or there are people whose business has just collapsed because they have been left with orders which are not being today entertained, or the customer has said they just cancelled the order. So we have formed a small community called the Sales Masters community, where people whosoever wants help in terms of helping them to be advised, and we can consult them with a group of our other trainers so that we can help them to reset their business. Because MSME sectors and small and medium enterprises are just folding down, and they are the biggest employers of today's generation. Big companies don't give that much employment, but the small and medium enterprises are doing it. So through this community, we are trying to help them out. And Father, as you rightly said, this is a time for us to be of service and see how best we can do. But I really wanted to thank you, because your today's interview will be broadcast, and we'll try to circulate it to as many people as possible so that they can get this nuggets of wisdom which you have shared. And maybe those, even one thought in my experience, can change people's life. So Father, thank you very much for your valuable time. I would just ask you to give us the last piece of your advice or your nugget of wisdom.
No, Mick, first of all, thank you very much for having me for this talk show. It was a wonderful experience for me, also the first of its kind. And I must tell you, you are also an inspiration to me. I look forward to seeing you, in Matunga at Don Bosco's on the Sundays that you come. Yeah. And your books also have been very, very inspiring, right from the first book, that you wrote till the present book. I really wish you all the best as an author. no, that you may reach out to millions and millions of people and change their lives. Yeah. If there is something I can just sum up, no, everything, and I would say is be true to yourself. No, because today in today's world there's so much of fakeness that
Yes.
is going around. Yeah, it is really difficult to find, to even know who is really speaking the truth. Yeah,
Yes.
so if we want to be people, who are happy, and who make others happy, then we need to be true to ourselves.
Very true.
Thank you very much, Mig. Yeah,
Thank you, Father.
and
Thank you
thanks
very
to
much.
all the people who have joined, for this Facebook session and who will be seeing the recording. Very honored and very privileged to be at this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father Crispino. I think this has been one of our best sessions, and each and every answer you gave are filled with those wisdom, which I'm sure every listener, not only in this live Facebook channel, plus the one who those who will be hearing it subsequent recording would benefit. So, Father, thank you very much, and God bless. Thank you. Thank you, Father. Thank you.